Good. I am good. How are you, my wonderful people? How are you to all the viewers at home? Kama uko nyumbani, kama uko CBD. This is not opinion ya Cameras Africa. This is my personal opinion, Victor Mutua. I stand with my fellow Kenyans. Tumekuja maandamano, twende maandamano, fight for your justice. But with that being said, good morning and welcome to the live session here with us at Cameras Africa today. Now, today we are going to be talking about, well, let me say we're going to be specializing when it comes to the gear, but we'll get into that a little bit for now. Well, means, welcome, have a seat, take your cup of coffee, and welcome. Join us. Kujini, we are live. So how has the week been before we start? My week has been angry. The week has been what? Angry. Yeah. Why? You're not angry, Louis. Why would they be angry? Because human injustices are going on. We need to fight for, we need to fight, yeah. But other than that, I cannot complain. It's business as usual. Things are slowing down. It is coming down to like the end of the fiscal financial year for most companies. So guys are slowing down, trips are slowing down, but we are open at Cameras Africa and we have all the equipment that you guys need, whether it's lights, microphones, the stuff we're going to be about today, gimbals, we have all of them in stock. So Victor, you've been a member of Cameras Africa for a while. So, and you know that outside of that is equipment services. Yes. So I think when it comes to equipping storytellers, the primary thing or the primary focus that all people gravitate towards is photographers, filmmakers, and videographers. And for the guys that follow us on our social media platforms, especially Instagram and TikTok, you guys know that our primary focus, besides selling you gear, is actually equipping you guys to tell your stories. So for the guys that have been following us, I don't know if you've been seeing the collaborations we're doing with Voda, with several other content creators and collaborators within Nairobi, within Kenya, and the whole point of equipping storytellers is to enable you to get the equipment that you need to tell the stories that you want in the way that you want to tell them. So yeah. Oh yeah, so for the people that don't know, we have a lot of workshops, and it's funny, every once in a while you meet someone who asks, how come you guys don't do workshops? That's how you know people don't follow us on Instagram. At workshops and you don't follow us on Instagram. We do a lot of workshops thanks to the capable hands of Louis, the person behind the camera. For those of you who don't know, we have been doing quite a few workshops recently, and we've actually, let me say, specialized when it comes to the workshops. So what we're doing, especially for the filmmakers, the photographers, and the videographers out there, is we're not just, throwing a broad net for workshops. We're trying to specialize. So if you're portrait photographers, if you're pro filmmakers, if you're entry-level filmmakers, photographers, we're trying to tailor-make workshops for specific individuals in specific categories. So be sure to follow us on all platforms. We post relentlessly, especially when it's time for workshops, whether or not you find us on Instagram, TikTok, like we even post on LinkedIn. So for those of you who don't know, besides buying gear and helping out and collaborating with people, we do quite a few workshops in collaboration with industry professionals for you guys for free. So yeah. So when you do ask questions, then we repeat the question. And you talk about collaboration. Yes. Collaborators that we have. Someone is asking how we, she wants us to collaborate with her. How can we go ahead about it? Maybe we can just tell them that they can send us a DM, then we reach out to them. Okay, to the person, the individual that has asked how they can collaborate with us, how we usually do is people usually reach out to us via DM, or they come in person to the shop. It is much easier for you to start the DM so that we can gauge your social media presence and everything. But it starts off as simple as just writing a text, DMing us, telling us, hi, my name is so-and-so, this is what I do, and I would love to collaborate with you guys. And even when you guys do create your content and you share it on your social media platforms, we do encourage people to tag us for collaborations. We are very open to collaborations, so DM us or just come to the shop physically and have a sit down. We see how we can work together. Yeah.
Another question by
Yes.
Kobe Principal is if you have different payment options.
Okay, so we currently do not have Lipam Dogo payment options. Sorry, to answer that question, the question being, do we have Lipam Dogo services? No, currently, as Cameras Africa, we do not offer Lipam Dogo services, but we do work in collaborations with companies like Aspira and Spot, which offer Lipam Dogo options whereby you work out a payment plan with a third-party financier to get the gear that you need. So reach out to companies like Aspira, reach out to companies like Spotted for Lipa Dogo options. Okay. So with that being said, today we are going to be talking about gimbals. And for those of you guys that don't know, in the simplest terms, okay, let me take it back a little bit. Gimbals are a relatively new technology. Well, not new, but they're quickly becoming smaller and more powerful as time goes by. And what a gimbal is, in the basic of simplest terms, is a gimbal is an essential piece of kit for videographers and filmmakers alike that allows you to stabilize footage, whether you're shooting handheld, whether you're moving, whether it's a tracking shot. Basically, the simplest way to explain it is a gimbal is an electronic device that is used to stabilize camera footage. So when you mount your camera onto it, any shake, any tiny bump, anything, like even the movement of you walking with a camera in your hand is absolutely nullified. So that is the basic, simple terms of what a gimbal is. So if you're unfamiliar with gimbals, they're basically devices that help you capture smooth footage even when you're on the move. Think of them as a secret weapon for professional looking video, whether you're shooting a vlog, capturing action, or even filming a wedding or an event. Yes, Phil.
The second person could be Principal and can you share the handles of Aspira for the
To answer that question from Kobe, he's asking whether you can share their handles. Kobe, I would kindly request you DM us with your request for Lipam Dogo services so that we can share with you the appropriate links and everything for Lipam Dogo services. So to Kobe, you've asked that question regarding Lipam Dogo. Kindly DM us so that we can share with you the appropriate links for the Lipam Dogo services. Yes, please.
African story.
Yes. Yes.
Them to DM us.
Okay.
About,
the collaboration thing.
Yeah, just
DM us. Okay. Story. Okay, and to answer African Story, I think he's been really asking about the collaboration thing. Again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream. If you'd like to collaborate with us, hit us up in the DMs, and then we can go from there. Tell us who you are, give us a brief description of what you do, share with us your metrics, your insights, your social media handles, and everything, and then we can proceed from there when it comes to collaborations. So, with that being said, I think now we can dive into our topic for today. In simplest terms, what is a gimbal? In simplest or the basic terms possible, a gimbal is an electronic mechanism that uses 3 or 2-axis stabilization to nullify any movement and gives you really smooth footage for professional cinematic look and feel when it comes to your video. So for the guys that wonder, if you're watching like a movie, if you've watched, like, for example, Sinners, not even Sinners, this movie that's trending right now, I think its name is Straw. It's a Tyler Perry movie. It has Taraji Simpson, if I'm not wrong. Insanely good movie. I have my own critiques about it being a filmmaker, but an insanely good movie. But if you see like those action shots where someone is driving or some people are walking, and you're wondering how this person has a camera, someone is walking either forward or backwards, or they're walking towards the camera, and it has incredibly smooth, stable footage. they do it using gimbals, and gimbals range from everything from small, simple phone gimbals like the ones we have here, the DJI Osmo Mobile 6, the DJI Osmo Mobile 7, or the Insta360 Pro gimbal, all the way up to some really high-end ones. For example, the DJI RS4 gimbal, the DJI RS4 Pro, and even the Zhiyun and significantly larger, bigger gimbals that are used on film sets. But today we're going to focus on the two subsets: phone gimbals and camera gimbals. I'm going to give you a quick way of how to set up your gimbal once you've purchased it. I'm going to be using the DJI RS4 for today's example. Keep in mind, it comes like this in the box, so I'm going to be giving you guys a quick, simple tutorial setup because this is a live stream and we have to keep track of time. However, if you'd like your own personalized tutorial, anything, by all means, come by the shop. We are more than happy to show you how to set up your gimbal, of course, after purchase. Louis, any questions before you proceed? No questions. Okay. Set up a gimbal. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Sure. So for the people that don't know what a gimbal is for, if you ever try to shoot footage, let's say with your phone or your camera, maybe you're doing a wedding, maybe you're doing an event, and you notice when you have your camera in hand like this, even if you strap it around your hand like tightly like this, you still get a little bit of shaky footage because humans are not gimbals. These are our hands. We get tired and cameras are heavy pieces of equipment. And what a gimbal does is basically it nullifies movement from three axes, the Z, X, and Y axis. So for the guys who are physics or high school, if you remember the whole three axis thing, there's a Z, the X, and the Y axis. And what a gimbal does is it basically nullifies any shaky, bumpy footage that you get when you're shooting. So with that being said, how does a gimbal work? So inside a gimbal, this machine right here, there are motors in this axis, in this axis, and in this axis. And what they do is they work together to detect movement and counteract it. When you are holding onto your camera like this, those tiny bumps and movements that you have when you're just being a human being, because cameras are heavy and everything, those movements and everything are completely nullified and corrected electronically using those motors. And that is the basic, simple setup of what a gimbal is. Now, with that being said, there are gimbals of different sizes and weight classes. And when you're starting off, of course, the gimbal that you're more than likely going to start with, if you're starting off with your phone, your Samsung S25, your iPhone, whichever phone you might have, the first item that most people get is something like a phone gimbal, such as the DJI Osmo Mobile 6, Osmo Mobile 7, or the Insta360 Pro gimbal. Now, the key difference or the key point when it comes to phone gimbals compared to camera gimbals is that with phone gimbals, it's literally plug and play. It comes with a simple phone holder that clips onto the back of your phone, and with that, it magnetically latches onto the gimbal itself, and from there, it does all of its electronic jargon and basically stabilizes your phone for you. With that being said, a phone gimbal is significantly easier to set up compared to a camera gimbal because, I kid you not, you literally put a phone mount on your phone, you literally magnetically attach it to your phone gimbal, and from there on, that's all the setup you're going to do. However, with camera gimbals, it gets a little bit more complex. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but that's because on a camera gimbal, you have to balance three axes: the tilt, pan, and the roll. Or for most other people, or for the professionals out there, the pan, tilt, shift axis, or the X, Y, Z axis. And basically what you're trying to do is, whereas if you're trying to hold onto your camera while you're shooting, you're trying to lock in, get it as stable as possible, it pushes out that whole concept of, weight balance and everything, and it basically sets the center of gravity to more or less the middle of the camera. So whenever you have any movement, whether it be with your arm or anything, it cancels out and it counteracts that movement, and it gives you nice, smooth footage. So with that being said, let me move these guys out of the way. And for those of you guys wondering, the gimbal that I am going to be showing you how to set up with today is the DJI RS4 gimbal. Now, they do come in different gradients. For example, you can get the DJI RS4 combo, which comes with an extra, if I'm not wrong, it's a focus motor that you mount onto the gimbal itself that allows you, or that gives you, an extra versatility when it comes to your gimbal. And it basically is an extra accessory that makes you more versatile as a filmmaker or as a videographer. Now, gimbals are relatively easy to set up once you get the hang of it. But unlike phone gimbals, which is just a magnetic phone mount and you clip it onto your phone gimbal, with the camera gimbal, you have a few significant moving parts. Starting off with this. This is your battery pack and your tripod stand. So when you purchase your gimbal, of course, all of these are going to come in a case like this. And when you open it up, it's going to be in a whole lot of pieces. Now, I wouldn't go into like breaking down each and every single piece because that's a whole another video in of itself. But I'm going to give you the simple basics to set up your gimbal, have it ready to go if you choose to buy a gimbal right now, and set it up and go and shoot as soon as you'd like. So you have the tripod mount right here. Place it on the table, make sure all of its legs are stretched out and placed on a stable, flat surface. Next up, you take your battery grip. It literally is just a battery grip, and this is what powers your gimbal. You screw it on to your gimbal like that. You set up like that. Make sure it's screwed in tightly and firmly. Place it on a nice flat surface. Make sure it's not a slippery surface because this is an expensive bit of kit and you don't want to make the mistake of like putting it on a slippery surface and having your equipment slide or fall or tilt. And also make sure it's on a flat, stable surface because if it's on an unstable surface, you are going to be having some issues balancing it and you're going to fry the motors. So with that being said, the next part or the most important part is this that I have right in my hand right here. Now, it looks complicated. It really isn't. I'm going to unlock these axes so that you can see how it looks when it's in the box. So when you buy this, it'll come like this in the bag itself. And again, this shouldn't scare you. This is just a couple of motors that balance out your camera when you mount your gimbal. So all you're going to do is check the battery grip, check the tripod, place it on a surface, screw in your battery grip, take your actual gimbal itself. So this is the gimbal mount itself. You're going to line up the contacts with your battery grip like so. It literally slots right in and you have your locking mechanism right here on the side. You're going to switch it all the way to the locked position and make sure it's firm and tight. Hold on it, make sure it's firm, and that's it. Not too complicated, right? So with that being said, let me say successfully done part one of setting up your gimbal, which is mounting it on the tripod, mounting the battery grip, and mounting the gimbal system itself. Now, after that, what you're going to do is simple. You're going to unlock these axes. So you're going to see a lot of these unlock buttons on the actual gimbal itself. So I hope you guys can see right here on the gimbal itself, you have a lot of unlock and lock buttons. And what these are called access locks. And what they are is basically when your gimbal is in the bag or when you're carrying it, they keep all of these things locked so that they don't move around, get scratched up or get damaged in transit. For example, old school gimbals didn't used to have locks. You used to have to manually lock them. And you'd notice that when you're in transit, you see all of this play, all of this movement can cause damage to your gimbal. So that's why they came with access locks. So what you're going to do is, I personally prefer to unlock all of the access locks, make sure all of them are unlocked and set up and ready to go. Make sure the gimbal is freely moving. I will say that again. Make sure the gimbal can freely move. As you can see, I'm moving this with one finger and it's moving freely. There is no resistance. There is no anything that's saying, yo, this isn't okay. With that being said, all you're going to do is literally unlock the axis and place it in such a way. All you're going to do is make sure that all of the axes are unlocked. All of the things that need to be tightened, again, what goes a bit more in depth, but all the things that need to be tightened are tightened, and everything that needs to be loosened up, which is the axes, are all loose and up. So after that, you're going to take this thing right here. This is just a simple tripod shoe that comes with the gimbal. Don't worry, you don't have to buy a new one. And you're going to screw it onto the bottom of your camera. like so.
Do you think a gimbal was created or something to make it easier for photography?
I think, okay, so something that a lot of people don't know, gimbals go like way back, but there used to be old school like mechanical stabilizers, which they didn't use electronic motors and everything to stabilize footage, but they used actual mechanical weights and physics that I dropped to counteract the movement when you're moving your gimbal. And that is, let me say, the OG stabilizers. There also used to be Steadicams, which use springs and a whole lot of other physical connections to counteract camera movements. Sorry, to counteract human movements and give you stable footage. And the thing is, what we're noticing more and more is that gimbals are quickly becoming smaller and more powerful as the days go by. For example, we have the DJI RS4 Mini, which currently reaches for about 46,000, and that thing can carry an E7 IV with a 24-70 G Master comfortably for a whole day of shooting, and that is the entry level gimbal. That was not the case when these gimbals were starting out. If you got a gimbal for like a 250D or like a 90D, that was the weight class that you're going to keep it in. The moment you step out of your weight class, you were risking frying the motors that are in here and killing your gimbal early. So always make sure you're getting something that is in your camera's weight class. If you have a Sony FX6, you have an entire rig setup that has a V-mount battery, it has Sony G Master Glass, it has a monitor, it has a cage, it has all of these things. You're not going to get a gimbal like this. You're going to get a gimbal like the DJI RS4 Pro or the Pro Combo. So keep that in mind when you're buying your gimbals. The weight class of your equipment and what exactly it is you're going to shoot. Of course, after this, after you've mounted the gimbal on your tripod, you've mounted the battery grip. Again, don't turn it on yet, and you've mounted the gimbal system. You've made sure everything is intact. You're just going to unlock the axes to make sure that anything that needs to be loose or adjusted is free. And finally, you are going to start setting up your gimbal. Louis, do you have any questions?
Exactly.
Yes.
Can it help me?
Can it help me?
Asking if it can help to stabilize your relationship.
Give me the name of that person. Mpewe jina.
Sijui ameenda wapi.
Amekuja live akakuzijama na akahepa. This is why we do live streams, guys. Getting, yeah. This is why we do live streams, guys. Getting these genuine, honest live reactions are absolutely hilarious. And for the person asking whether a gimbal can help stabilize the relationships, Mudusi Brian. Okay. To answer your question, Mudusi Brian, a gimbal might help stabilize your relationship if you buy a gimbal, become a filmmaker or cinematographer or videographer, lock in the bag, and then lock in the babe. So it might help or it might disrupt it, because setting these things up and even investing in this is not cheap. So, real of salt, it might help if you're both filmmakers. It might actually help to, set up this thing together and find out something new about each other. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just trying to help the guys out here to find love. Watu wapenda mapenzi bana. Si ngumu, but imagine si ngumu. So, tuambie jina huyo. I have fans apparently. Kuna mtu alikuja kununua kitu juu tuliongea kuhusu. There's someone that came to buy something because we discussed it during the live stream, and that genuinely gave Unity a hope. Imagine. Man, you guys give us the strength to continue doing these live streams. We do appreciate you guys coming into the live streams and giving us the support. So, to answer that earlier question before I laugh my head off, this is the DJI RS4 gimbal, and it currently retails at Cameras Africa for 66,000 shillings. If you're on the RS4 combo, it retails for 83,000 shillings. And the RS4 Pro combo retails for 112,000 shillings.
Somebody say,
Yes.
what's a happen? Somebody because it's like this relationship, it's like,
Eh.
it's like, DJI stagnation, DJI stabilizing.
I'm sorry, Jevin. Jevin. Are you sure Jevin?
Jevin,
I know you, Jevin. Oh my goodness. Big, huge, massive shout out to Jevin Mutua, an incredible photographer, filmmaker, cinematographer, a good friend of Cameras Africa, and a personal good friend of mine. We met at ADMI, and he's one of the best filmmakers I have met to date. Jevin, thank you for the support. Thank you for coming to the live. And again, to answer the earlier question, a gimbal might help to stabilize your relationship. I don't know your dynamics, but for me, when I bought my gimbal, we are both filmmakers. By the way, let me give you guys some context. Me and my wife are both filmmakers. So when I got a gimbal, learning how to set it up and balance the axis helped us find out new things about each other and find out new things about gear. And the fact that apparently guys are afraid of equipment because it looks expensive and hard to set up, but it's not, guys. Gimbals are really easy to set up. But with that being said, huge shout out to Jevin and thank you for supporting the live. Yes, please. This retails for 66,000 shillings. You know what, my friend? Shoot your shots. Kuja shop. Let's see whether you'll get that discount. I cannot guarantee it, so we on a set day. But you know what? Props to you. Thank you for joining the live. Thank you for the support. Come by the shop. Let's see what we can do. 66 is the retail, and there's always room for negotiation. So by all means, come by and let's see what we can do for you. So with that being said, I think we can move on to the part that we all came for, which is setting up a gimbal. Now, I'm just going to lock these axes real quick. That's the two main axes on a gimbal. And what I've done is I've mounted the tripod shoe onto the camera itself. And all I'm going to do, guys, also, if you have a gimbal, remove your camera straps. This will get in the way of your camera, and it can lead to these things getting tangled up and dropping your camera. So if you're setting up on a gimbal, you can shoot with or without. It entirely depends on you, but I personally choose to remove it because I don't like this hanging, because for me, I feel like it might get tangled up in the wires and cause a bigger issue. So that being said, let me set this up real quick. All I've done is just slide the gimbal in. I have not set up any axis yet. You see what I was saying about the arm straps and the shoulder straps? And I have locked that axis. Now, after this, as you can see, make sure, and I say this a lot, guys, when you mount your tripod shoe on the back of your gimbal like this, make sure this thing is firm. You do not want to have a gimbal with unloose or loose screws or mounts. Make sure when you mount your gimbal onto your camera, when you mount your camera onto your gimbal, make sure the tripod shoe is safely and securely mounted. Now, with that being said, I'm going to lock one axis and we're going to focus on one axis at a time. So, starting off with what I would say is not the simplest axis to balance, but I feel like for me, it's the easiest one to do because it's literally just balancing up and down or back and forth. And for that, I'm going to open up this axis and basically move the camera back. So what you're going to try and do is when you let go of the camera, it should be able to stay stably looking forward. So with that being said, the camera is no longer tilting back or forward, meaning that you have stabilized one axis. We're going to move on to the second axis, which is the pan and the tilt. So for that, I'm going to unlock a second clip over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to move this physically from left to right until we find the center of gravity that allows the camera to sit freely without obstruction, without resistance, and balance perfectly like that. Okay, and that's the second axis locked. So guys, as you've seen, it's really easy thus far. One axis at a time. Yes, Louis.
Visual cases, what is the weight limit for DJI RS4?
The weight limit for the DJI RS4 should be around 6.6 kilograms. I will have to confirm that, but on our website, it should be listed as 6.6 kilograms, which, I mean, they use the Sony a7 IV, which is not a light camera. Actually, no, if I'm not wrong, they use the Sony FX3, which is not a light camera at all. And they use it with a Sony 24-70G Master. Basically, cameras are heavy in hand, but you'd be surprised just how much weight these gimbals can take. So what I've done thus far is I've simply stabilized two axes. So that is the one for panning and tilting. So up and down, making sure that it's, when I let go of the camera, it just stays looking straight. And now we're going to stabilize another axis, which is the pan and the tilt. So for this one, all I'm doing is opening an axis and I'm going to push this forward or back until we find balance. So guys, balancing a gimbal is patience. I will say that right now, because you balance one axis, make sure it's nice and safe. Yes, Louis. Yes, Louis.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
it's like pro tip. Removing the lens cap and strap before balancing is advised. It really does change
the center of gravity. So thank you for that tip, Jevin. So for the guys that are in the live with us, thank you for your tips and for your recommendations and comments. Jevin has said something really important, which is to remove the lens cap and the shoulder straps. I said this when I was starting this. Remove your shoulder straps when you're setting up your gimbal. You can keep this on if you want, but a lot of times, more than likely what's going to happen is you're going to be shooting, and if, like, let's say for example, you've left one thing unlocked that's not supposed to be locked, and you're shooting and everything, and then that happens. Yeah, it's happened to a lot of people and it will continue to happen. So make sure you've removed your shoulder straps and your lens cap to make sure the center of gravity is nice and center. So as our two axes are locked in, let's fine tune the balance of this gimbal. So I'm going to unlock another axis and either adjust it left or right until I find that perfect COG, as Jevin has mentioned. For the guys wondering what COG might be, COG simply refers to center of gravity. So as you can see, as soon as I let go of the camera, it's not standing freely. So we're going to adjust that real quick. So this is now the part of now where balancing gimbals looks kind of complicated, which is just these tiny nudges to make sure that the COG is perfectly balanced. So yeah, guys, I think I'm going to take these off just to make this a lot more realistic. So I mentioned this before, and Jevin has reminded us, when you're setting up your gimbal, remove your shoulder straps. They will get tangled. You can keep them on if you want to, but you run the risk of getting these straps tangled and causing you a lot more than just a gimbal. So always keep that in mind. Remove your shoulder strap and remove your lens cap. So let's finalize these axes. So as you can see, when you look at the camera, it's tilting forward. So I'm going to open up the pan axis, move it back a little bit. I'm going to lock this up. Okay, so it's no longer just tilting fully back. When I touch the camera and I put it in a certain place, it should hold its position wherever it is in space. So as you can see, it's just fine-tuning a little bit. So I'm going to open up this axis one more time. Nudge it a little bit forward. And guys, you're going to want to do this. And yes, it is tiresome sometimes setting this up a lot. So what I usually recommend is, especially if you're going to be doing like a long shoot with it, you can actually have this pre-set up, which is basically before you start your shoots, like you know which camera you're using and you know the lens you're using. You can set this up beforehand and just have it ready and in your bag. So if you'd like, you can have this pre-set up, but a lot of times when you're setting up a gimbal, especially before a shoot, Take the time to balance all of these axes. Do not run and gun with the gimbal because you will fry the motors, and your gimbal's life will go like from 5 years to 1 year because you'll fry these motors. Okay, so that being said, right now, as you can see, I've found balance, which basically means that if I let go of the camera right now, it should keep its state. So for example, if I pan it forward, it's keeping its balance. If I push it to the side, let's see here, it keeps its balance. So that means that we've balanced all of the axes on the gimbal. Next up, we're going to want to make sure that the auto locks on the gimbal itself are unlocked. So I'm going to unlock this one, unlock that one. And finally, we've come to the coup de grace, which is turning on your gimbal. The DJI RS4, you have the power button on the side. It's usually on the battery first. So you'll double tap on the battery, make sure it's lit up green, and you're going to want to turn on the gimbal. As you guys can hear, my gimbal is not happy, which means that I have either left one axis lock unlocked, or let's see why my gimbal is complaining. So I'm just going to turn it on real quick. I'm noticing that there's quite a bit of so there is, after you've balanced the axes, which I did, I'm doing something called calibrating, which is something that the gimbal will prompt you to do when you've switched it on. If it doesn't and your axes are proper and everything, then you might have to go into the settings and calibrate the gimbal, depending on the weights and the previous settings you had kept it on. So as you can see, I've done just that, and just like that, my gimbal is ready to shoot. Now, a lot of people tend to ask, Vic, but what about the screen? Honestly, guys, the screen doesn't hold as much weight as I think it does when it comes to the camera, so I don't think it affects the axes as much, and this is not going to mess up your entire gimbal system because of motor. And there you have it. Setting up a gimbal is as easy as that. I may have made it look simpler, but it's a lot easier in person, trust you me. And as you can see, my gimbal is happy. There's nothing vibrating, there's nothing jerking. Movement is free and easy. There's no resistance, and there's no warning on the gimbal display screen right here. That being said, that means you have set up gimbal correctly, and from there, it's learning the different modes. There's pan, tilt, follow, there's pan, follow, and there's FPV mode, which basically means that if you have this gimbal set up in FPV, what it gives you is different modes for different shooting setups. So pan, tilt, follow means that if I have the gimbal set up like this and I pan, I tilt, and I follow someone, it follows the actions of my hand, like how it would feel cinematic or how it would go when you're shooting with your camera in a handheld state. And for the most part, that is it. The finalizing of learning a gimbal is learning the different modes like pan, tilt, follow, FPV mode, which for people that actually wonder how guys do that crazy 360 roll, this is how they do it. Like, if you're wondering how your favorite music video is shot, this is how it's done, my friends. This is how it is done. So yeah, that is the simplest way to set up a gimbal. Mount the battery, mount a tripod, mount the gimbal, balance the axes, and turn on your gimbal and calibrate your gimbal. I cannot understate this enough. Always take the time to calibrate your gimbal. It means that the motors get a whole lot more lifetime, and basically that means that you get a much better product that will outlive you, maybe, or you might come and upgrade it later. So with that being said, I'm going to mount this support right here. So this is something that comes with the combo kit. And what it is an extra axis for the guys that are shooting for significantly longer times. So as you can see here right now, because I have this here as well, I have an extra point of support. and it basically makes my job a whole lot easier, and it works for both sides. So you can also mount this on the left side if you're left-handed. I am right-handed, so as you can see, it's mounted, and the minute I have this second axis, I have an extra bit of support, and I have an extra mounting point if I have a battery, if I have a grip, if I have something else, and it basically makes my job a whole lot easier. With that being said, that was the basics in and out of setting up a gimbal. They are not complicated. They're easy to set up once you get the hang of it. And if you get a phone gimbal, you don't have to worry about setting all of this up. But with that being said, I think we can open up the room to questions from the audience. Louis?
Just majority of them is saying make it look so easy. Some of it's like I wish I could set it up like you. Another one is like that's really yeah.
Well, thank you guys. It's genuinely just practice. Like, I kid you not, invest in this gear early enough, because buying a gimbal isn't like buying a camera or a lens. If you get like a DJI RS4 gimbal and you start with your Sony a6400 and an 18 to 135mm lens, you're still going to use that gimbal when you get your Sony a7 IV, your Canon R5C, whichever camera you get. I kid you not, you're going to use the same gimbal. You set up or you change your gimbal when you get into like the big leagues. So when you're setting up, like, let's say, for example, a Sony FX6, for example, the insanely beautiful cinema camera, that's when you're going to want to leap from a DJI RS4 to maybe an RS4 Pro or even higher grade gimbals. But for the simplest and the basic setup for shooting cinematic footage and filmic footage for weddings, for events, this is a setup you're going to want to have. And I kid you not, it's that simple. And now you see what I was saying about counteracting my movement. So if you were to check out this footage on this camera, it's definitely going to be cinematic. So with that being said, Louis, do you have any questions?
I read a photography and what does it mean when the gimbal vibrates?
Now, when a gimbal vibrates while shooting, that's something that happened when we started up this gimbal right here. I balanced all the axes, but I did not calibrate it in the gimbal itself. So when it's vibrating, I highly recommend switching it off first, making sure, like what I've done, I've switched mine off, making sure all axes, that is the pan, tilt, and fold axes, are balanced first. So as you can see, this one actually has a little bit of play because I did remove the screen. So I'm just going to adjust for that right real quick. Really quickly, guys, quick adjustments. If your gimbal is vibrating when you turn it on, it means, number one, either one of the axes that you set it up on is not balanced. As you can see, mine is balanced on all axes. So when I push it, when I tilt it, it stays in place. If one of the motors is vibrating, number one, either you might not have unlocked the axes. With the DJI, I know it has a failsafe that prevents you from turning it on when you haven't, but if you haven't mounted or if you haven't balanced your axes well, it will vibrate and it will try and stop you from unlocking your gimbal and trying to set it up. So more than likely, one of the axes is imbalanced, or more than likely, you may have fried one of the motors and it may require a bit of service to get the motor back up and running. But I usually say start off simple, rebalance the axes, get into the gimbal setting itself, and tweak or go to the calibration settings and set the gimbal to calibrate when it's vibrating. If it's still vibrating, it means there might be an issue with one of your motors, at which point it's time for you to go for repairs or for service, or if it's under warranty, we will get it checked. So with that being said, this is Cameras Africa. This is a DJI RS4 gimbal. I had a lot of fun teaching you guys how to set this up. I made it look easy, and trust you me, it's a lot easier than it looks. By all means, come by the shop today. I will show you firsthand how to set this up for free. No questions asked, no extra fees. Just come through. I'll be happy to show you how to set this up. With that being said, this is Cameras Africa. Welcome to the live stream, and goodbye for now. Thank you to Louis. Thank you to Cameras Africa. And for the people, for the people out there, thank you for your support. You guys coming and watching the live is the reason why we do this. So again, thank you very much. And I will see you guys next week.